as John the Baptist was sitting in prison waiting to have his head cut off. He said, oh, it was a wonderful plan. It's just not true.
In recent years, let's say the last 50 years, there's been a different evangelism technique than the one used in the Bible. The Bible prophets or the apostles, they often use the law, as you just said. Jesus used the law, Paul used the law. But people now come up and say, you know, God has a wonderful plan for your life. Why is that the wrong approach?
Well, it's just not true. It's not used in Scripture. And people say, what about the abundant life? The abundant life, the word abundant just means full. The Apostle Paul had an abundant life. It was full of beating, stoning, shipwreck, imprisonment, and martyrdom. The first 11 apostles were murdered for their faith. If you read Fox's Book of Martyrs, you'll realize that the foundation of the church is soaked in blood. If you want to talk about a wonderful life, lean up to Stephen as he's being stoned to death and say, wonderful plan. Or as James had his head cut off by Herod, as John the Baptist was sitting in prison waiting to have his head cut off. He said, oh, it was a wonderful plan. It's just not true. And the promise of Scripture is threefold, well, fourfold: persecution, tribulation, temptation, and everlasting life. And I can handle the first three for the fourth. I mean, I've got everlasting life, so if the world hates me, doesn't really matter. If they persecute me and trials come every day, doesn't matter. Just thinking this morning, life isn't a box of chocolates. Life is more like a box filled with hand grenades. Every day there's big problems. But when you've got Christ, you've got everlasting life. You're like a man on a plane with a parachute, knowing he has to jump. And even though the flight gets bumpy, you cling to that parachute. And so as a Christian, my consolation isn't that things are going good with Jesus, that he's better than sex and drugs and partying. My consolation is that my name is written in heaven. And if death seizes on me today, I've got everlasting life, and that consolation is so powerful.